We've all been there. We've all trusted someone, opened our hearts to them, only for them to do something that leaves us stunned, questioning everything we thought we knew about them. It's that gut-wrenching feeling when someone you thought you understood turns out to be completely different from what you expected. And in those moments, we are left grappling with a truth that is hard to accept. Human nature is unpredictable. We can spend years trying to understand someone, trying to decode their behavior, trying to make sense of their actions, only to find ourselves blindsided. And we're left asking, why did they do that? But what if, in all that confusion, we're missing the most important question? What if the real question isn't, why did they do that, but why don't I understand myself? Because the truth is, we often expect to understand others, yet we fail to fully understand ourselves. We judge others for their unpredictable actions, their words that hurt us. But in reality, we too are unpredictable. If we don't understand the depths of our own hearts, the complexity of our own feelings, how can we possibly expect to fully understand someone else's heart? So, before we try to figure out others, maybe it's time we asked ourselves, what is truly going on within me? What do I really need? What do I really feel? And why do their actions have such an impact on me? This journey starts with understanding our own hearts. Only then can we move forward and better understand those around us. Let's take a moment to pause, breathe, and reflect on this. Understanding yourself is the first step to understanding the world around you. We are all walking contradictions. We're a blend of dreams and fears, of light and darkness, of joy and pain. And within us, there is a quiet battle that we often don't even fully understand, a battle between who we think we are and who we actually are. We wear masks every day. We hide parts of ourselves, sometimes even from ourselves, because we don't always understand why we feel the way we feel. We don't always understand why we act the way we do. Our hearts are complicated, filled with old wounds, deep desires, and long-held fears. We might smile on the outside, but there's often turmoil within. We might want one thing, but act in a completely different way. The truth is, human nature is messy, and that mess is something we live with every day. And yet, we constantly try to make sense of the world and of others. We try to read their every action, to predict their behavior, to understand their thoughts. But here's the question. If we cannot fully understand our own hearts, how can we possibly expect to understand the hearts of others? We are, in many ways, a mystery to ourselves. We don't always know why we make the choices we do, why certain things trigger us, or why we crave things that seem so out of reach. Sometimes, the emotions inside us are like a storm, unpredictable and chaotic. We don't always know what's going on, but we feel it. And when we don't understand ourselves, it's easy to project that confusion onto others. We assume that if they don't act the way we want, it's because they don't care, or they don't understand us. But maybe, just maybe, the key to understanding others lies in first understanding ourselves. Because when we begin to look inward, we start to realize that everyone is carrying their own confusion, their own burdens, their own contradictions. We are not alone in our struggle to understand our hearts. We are all just trying to figure out who we are, why we feel what we feel, and what we truly want from this world and the people in it. So, before you try to figure someone else out, ask yourself, do I truly understand my own heart? If we don't take the time to reflect, to accept our own contradictions, how can we ever begin to accept the contradictions in others? People are unpredictable. But isn't that the truth of being human? We are creatures of complexity. So much of what we feel, think, and act upon is influenced by things we can't always explain. We surprise ourselves, and in doing so, we surprise others. It's easy to think that someone is being inconsistent or changing constantly when we witness unexpected behavior. But in reality, it's not about inconsistency. It's about the parts of them that have yet to be fully understood by them and by us. There are layers in every person that we may never see. There are quiet battles they're fighting, things they haven't said, things they haven't yet made peace with. These hidden layers often shape their actions, sometimes in ways that confuse or even hurt us. But here's the thing. People are not defined by their mistakes or their unexpected actions. They are defined by their journey, a journey that is ongoing, just like ours. They are constantly evolving, learning, unlearning, and growing. So, when they act in ways that are difficult to understand, it's not necessarily a betrayal, and it's not a reflection of who they truly are. It's simply a piece of their ongoing story. If we can remember that people are works in progress, just like us, we stop seeing their mistakes or their unpredictability as things to judge. Instead, we start to see them as opportunities to grow closer, to learn about the layers they've kept hidden, and to give them the space to heal and evolve. We don't have to understand every reason behind their actions. We don't need to know all the details of their struggles to love them. Sometimes, love is simply accepting that we may never understand everything about them, but choosing to love them anyway, with all their complexity, their unpredictability, and their flaws. It's not about always knowing. It's about choosing to be present with them, to walk alongside them in their imperfections, and to honor their journey without needing to make sense of every step they take. In that space of acceptance, love grows. And when we stop demanding answers, we open the door for true connection. Because love doesn't need to know everything. Love simply chooses to be there, to stand beside the other, through every unpredictable twist and turn. How often do we spend our time trying to understand others? We try to decipher their every action, their words, the hidden meanings behind their silence, and we spend countless hours wondering, why did they do that? But what if I told you that the answers you seek aren't out there? What if the real answer lies inside you, within the heart that you haven't fully taken the time to understand? It's easy to get lost in the whirlwind of trying to understand others, but the deeper truth is, we often don't understand ourselves. We don't always know why we feel the way we feel, why certain things make us angry, why certain actions make us withdraw, or why we act in ways that contradict our own values. We look outward for explanations, for answers that seem to lie in someone else's behavior. But the reality is, the truth you seek is within you, and it always has been. When we fail to understand our own emotions, we project them onto others. We react in ways we don't fully comprehend, and sometimes those reactions hurt both ourselves and the people we care about. But how can we understand why we're acting a certain way if we don't know what's driving us? How can we stop hurting others with our unresolved pain if we haven't even taken the time to explore it ourselves? It's time to stop searching for answers outside and start asking ourselves the most important question. What does my heart truly want? What am I longing for? And why? Am I seeking love, understanding, validation, or just peace? These questions might seem simple, but answering them takes courage. It means sitting with the discomfort of not having all the answers, of facing the parts of ourselves that we often push away because they are too painful, too raw, or too unfamiliar. But in that discomfort is where we find the truth. When we begin to understand ourselves, our true desires, and the motivations behind our actions, we can start to make choices that are aligned with who we really are, not who we think others want us to be. This is where true healing begins, not in the answers we get from others, but in the answers we discover within ourselves. There's a question that we often avoid asking ourselves, and it's the question that holds the key to our peace. What do I truly want? When was the last time you really sat with yourself, looked deep into your heart, and asked, what do I need right now? So many of us go through life seeking answers from the outside world, looking for validation from others, for love, for acceptance, for success. We think that if we find these things outside of ourselves, we'll be whole. But the truth is, we can never truly feel whole until we understand what we are seeking within ourselves. What are you yearning for? What is it that your heart is truly longing for? Is it love? Is it peace? Is it approval? The danger comes when we start seeking these things from others, expecting them to fill the voids within us. And when they can't, we feel let down, confused, or even resentful. But that void wasn't theirs to fill. It was ours. This feeling of emptiness, of longing, comes from not fully understanding our own needs. When we don't know what we're truly craving, we end up seeking fulfillment in places and people who can't give us what we need. But when we stop and ask ourselves the hard question, what do I truly want? We start to realize that what we need most is to reconnect with ourselves, to acknowledge the gaps within us and face them, not with shame, but with love and understanding. It's painful, isn't it? To realize that we've been living in search of something we didn't even know we were missing, but it's also the most freeing thing you can do for yourself. When you recognize what you truly desire, whether it's peace, connection, love, or validation, you can begin to give that to yourself. It's not about finding someone else to fill your cup. It's about filling it yourself, learning to nourish your own soul, and finally allowing yourself to be whole. So, let me ask you again, what do you truly want? And more importantly, how can you start giving that to yourself, starting today? What if, for once, you stopped trying to be perfect? What if you embraced yourself just as you are, flaws, scars, contradictions, and all? We live in a world that tells us we need to be flawless, to be loved, to be worthy. We've been conditioned to believe that only when we achieve perfection in appearance, in success, in relationships will we be enough. But the truth? Perfection is an illusion. It's a construct built by others and reinforced by society, but it doesn't exist, and yet we chase it every day. We chase the idea that if we could just fix this one thing, change this one habit, be just a little bit better, then we would finally be whole. But you're already whole. You don't need to be perfect to be worthy of love. You don't need to wait until you're better to start loving yourself. Loving yourself isn't about waiting for the moment when you've achieved it all. It's about loving yourself now in the rawness of your vulnerability, in the messiness of your journey. You don't need to be flawless to be loved. In fact, it's your imperfections that make you real. It's those little cracks, those wounds that have yet to heal, that make you human, and human is exactly what you are meant to be. The more we strive for perfection, the more we lose touch with who we truly are. We become trapped in a cycle of self-rejection, always striving for something that can never be reached. But what if we stopped trying to reach that ideal and, instead, chose to love ourselves in the middle of our mess? What if we could look in the mirror and say, I am enough, even if I'm not perfect? It's in the acceptance of our imperfections that we find true freedom. It's in letting go of the need for approval from others that we finally embrace the beauty of who we truly are. When you accept yourself, not just the parts you like, but the parts that feel broken, the parts that make you feel less than, that's when you truly begin to heal. And here's the beautiful thing. The more you love yourself exactly as you are, the less you'll need anyone else's approval. You won't need validation from others to feel worthy, because you'll know that your worth comes from within. So, I ask you, what would happen if you stopped seeking perfection? What would happen if you started loving yourself in the here and now, just as you are, without waiting for anything to change? In that love, you'll find the peace you've been searching for, the peace that doesn't come from outside, but from the deep acceptance and affection you give yourself. How often do we try to change the people around us? We want them to be different, to act differently, to meet our expectations and needs. We look at their actions, their words, and we think, if only they could be this way, everything would be better. But here's the truth, you can't change others. No matter how hard you try, no matter how many times you tell them what to do, no matter how many times you show them the right way, they will always be who they are. And that's okay. Because the only person you have control over, the only person whose actions you can shape, is yourself. The freedom comes when you stop trying to change others and start focusing on how you choose to react to them. What if instead of trying to force someone into a mold of your expectations, you simply accepted them as they are? What if, instead of seeing their flaws as something to fix, you saw them as part of their unique journey? This doesn't mean you have to agree with everything they do or tolerate behaviors that harm you. It simply means accepting them for who they are, without the need to change them into someone they're not. Acceptance doesn't mean approval. It means you understand that they are doing the best they can based on their own struggles, their own pain, and their own experiences. And when you accept people as they are, something incredible happens. You find peace. You stop carrying the weight of expectation. You stop living in frustration, wishing others were different. Instead, you release that burden and choose to love them as they are. When you stop trying to change others, you give yourself the freedom to love them without strings attached. You no longer live in the tension of unmet expectations. You allow yourself to breathe, to let go, to simply be present with them in the moment, as they are. This is the kind of peace that fills your soul. It comes from releasing the need to control and choosing to live in harmony with what is, instead of what you want it to be. So, I invite you to reflect. What would happen if you stopped trying to change the people around you and instead chose to accept them as they are? In this space of acceptance, you'll find your heart lightened, your spirit free, and your relationships more genuine and fulfilling. What if the key to peace isn't found in perfection, but in the very imperfections we try so hard to avoid? What if true freedom, true peace, comes not from striving for an ideal that we can never reach, but from embracing exactly where we are, flaws, mistakes, and all? We live in a world that constantly pushes us to be more, to do more, to be more perfect, to fit into molds that were never meant for us. We are told that happiness is something we must earn, something that comes after we've achieved our goals, after we've fixed our flaws. But the truth is, happiness isn't something we achieve. It's something we accept. We wait for perfection, thinking that once we've reached it, everything will fall into place. But here's the reality. Perfection doesn't exist. We are all beautifully imperfect, and it's in that imperfection that we find the depth of our humanity. When we stop expecting perfection from ourselves and from others, we create space for peace. Peace comes not from the absence of flaws, but from the acceptance of them. It comes from looking at ourselves and others, not with judgment, but with compassion. When we can accept our mistakes, our faults, our moments of weakness, we begin to let go of the pressure to be perfect. We let go of the pressure to be anything other than who we truly are in this moment. And in doing that, we release the heavy burden of comparison, of competition, of always feeling like we're not enough. Imagine what it would be like to stop striving for perfection, to stop looking at yourself or others through the lens of what's missing, and simply appreciate what already is. In this moment, with all your flaws, your imperfections, your struggles, you are enough. When you can accept this about yourself, you'll begin to see others with the same compassion. You'll realize that their imperfections, their mistakes, their messy emotions are not flaws to be fixed, but parts of their unique beauty. This is where peace lives. You don't need to control others, fix yourself, or strive for some perfect version of reality. Instead, you can simply be. You can let go of the pressure to understand everything, to have everything figured out, and you can choose to simply accept life as it is, in all its messy, imperfect beauty. And in that acceptance, you'll find the peace you've been searching for. At the heart of everything, the love we seek, the peace we crave, the connection we long for, is the simple truth that we must first love ourselves. You don't need to understand everyone else completely. You don't need to have all the answers about why they act the way they do, or why they sometimes hurt you. But there's one thing you must understand deeply: yourself. When we focus on understanding ourselves, when we take the time to truly know our hearts, with all the mess, the chaos, the beauty we unlock, the key to lasting peace. Peace doesn't come from perfection. It comes from acceptance. It comes from looking at yourself not with judgment, but with love. And when you love yourself, exactly as you are, you stop needing others to meet your expectations. You stop needing them to fit into a mold you've created for them. You start loving them for exactly who they are, without trying to change them. But this starts with you. You can't give what you don't have. So, I invite you to ask yourself, what does my heart truly want? What does it need to feel complete and at peace? And more importantly, how can I love myself in every moment, in every imperfection, in every part of me that I've hidden away? When you ask yourself these questions, don't expect instant answers. The journey is about becoming aware of the parts of you that you've ignored, the parts that you've judged, and learning to love them. You don't have to wait for perfection to love yourself. You are worthy of love, of peace, right now in this moment as you are. And as you begin to love yourself fully, you will see the world differently. You will see others differently. You will start to create relationships based on acceptance, not expectations. You will find that the more you accept your own flaws, the more you can accept others for theirs. This is the magic of self-love. It's not just about feeling good about yourself in isolation, but about creating connections that are built on understanding and compassion. You are enough, just as you are. Now it's time to believe that, to feel it deep in your soul. And once you do, you'll realize that the love you've been searching for was inside of you all along.